welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has arrived in Kyiv as a special guest for Ukraine's Independence Day, vowing unwavering support and backing a just and lasting peace. His visit comes as Russian forces claim new gains in Donetsk, with the three-year war showing little sign of a settlement. U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg has also attended Ukraine's Independence Day celebrations in Kyiv. President Volodymyr Zelensky has confirmed Kellogg's presence as Ukraine courts Trump's support to pressure Russia to end its 3.5-year invasion. Russia says a Ukrainian drone strike damaged a transformer at the Kursk nuclear power plant, starting a fire that was quickly put out. With no casualties or radiation leaks reported, the incident came as Ukraine celebrates Independence Day, while the UN nuclear watchdog urged both sides to show restraint around atomic facilities. Israeli planes and tanks struck eastern and northern Gaza City overnight, leveling homes in Zaytun, Shijaya, and Jabalia. As residents fled under heavy shelling, the assault comes as a global hunger monitor confirms famine in Gaza City, even as Israeli leaders vow to press ahead with full takeover. Former Defense Minister Benny Gantz has called on Prime Minister Netanyahu to form a unity government with opposition members to secure the release of hostages in Gaza. The move would sideline far-right coalition partners who oppose any deal with Hamas, even as Israel threatens to destroy Gaza City if hostages are not freed. Ukrainian drones have struck Russia on Ukrainian Independence Day, forcing a 50% reduction in capacity at reactor number 3 of the Kursk nuclear power plant and igniting a massive fire at Novatek's UST Luga fuel export terminal. Russia's defense ministry said air defenses intercepted at least 95 drones across more than a dozen regions as the war rages along the 2,000-kilometer front line. 3 former Sri Lankan presidents have condemned the jailing of a 76-year-old Ranil Wickremesinghe as a calculated assault on democracy, calling the 55,000 state funds case frivolous. Wickremesinghe was rushed to intensive care in Colombo with serious health issues while in custody, fueling public outrage. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has declared that Tehran will not be obedient to U.S. demands, vowing to stand strongly against pressure for direct negotiations, according to local state media. Khamenei said the issue with Washington is unsolvable. U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg has also attended Ukraine's Independence Day celebrations in Kyiv today, a symbolic show of support as the war enters its 4th year. President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed Kellogg's presence, underscoring Kyiv's effort to court backing from Washington in its bid to force Russia to end the invasion. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was also in Kyiv for the Ukrainian Independence Day. Let's have a look at what the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said.
Сьогодні разом з нами тут, в Україні, прем'єр-міністр Канади Марк Карні. І кожного дня все більше повертаючи цю війну туди, звідки вона до нас прийшла, в російське небо і на російську землю. І з кожним кроком цієї війни там, з тиском на Росію, з їхніми реальними втратами, ми знаємо, що мир для України стає ближчим.
Високо ціную лідерство чинного президента США Дональда Трампа у створенні можливостей для миру. І я, звичайно, вітаю пана генерала Келлога тут сьогодні. Та коли цей мир настане, ми не зможемо просто довіряти і перевіряти. Натомість ми повинні стримувати і укріплювати. Ми повинні стримувати Росію від будь-якої нової спроби загрожувати свободі України та Європи. Слава Україні!
Et vive le Canada.
Ruben Johnson. He's a director at Asia Research Center at the Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation, joins us live from Warsaw. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. What role does Independence Day play in reinforcing Ukrainian national identity during wartime like this?
Ukrainian national identity was more or less forged 11 years ago during the 2013-2014 Revolution of Dignity, what we call the Maidan Revolution, in which Moscow was trying to essentially pull Ukraine into its orbit, which it's tried to do multiple times, and was attempting to block Ukraine from taking the first step towards becoming a member of the European Union. So that's a very important day because it's always been the day that people celebrate as being independent from Russia and being a country that looks towards the European Union in the West and not to the East.
And Ruben, how is Ukraine balancing national morale and military necessity during this war and also this kind of celebration?
How are they, did you say, how are they balancing national morale?
Yeah, national morale, also the military necessity.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking to Ukrainians all morning here, okay? I mean, and because it's a holiday, and I've talked to people that I know, and this is the national morale. I've never seen it so determined as it is now. I mean, people are physically, emotionally, in every way you can think of, exhausted. But the longer this goes on, and the more sort of false hope that's laid out there for a peace deal, the stronger that morale becomes. And as far as the military affairs now, there's been an announcement today of a very large shipment of missiles and other help that's coming from the U.S. and some of its allies. So they know that this military assistance keeps coming. But when I talk to people, they say, we realize we're on our own because all of these quote unquote peace initiatives, they kind of end the same way. People talk to Putin. Putin says he's interested in some kind of an agreement, but he keeps on killing people.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ruben, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused Western countries today of trying to block peace negotiations to end the Ukraine war after a flurry of diplomatic activity appeared to stall. They're just looking for a pretext to block negotiations, Lavrov has said in an interview with state TV station Rossiya aired on today on Telegram, also criticizing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for obstinately setting conditions demanding an immediate meeting at all costs with Russian counterpart President Vladimir Putin. Now for this discussion, we go back to Ruben Johnson. He's a director at Asia Research Center at the Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation. Thank you, Ruben, for staying with us. Now, how should we interpret Sergei Lavrov's claim that Western nations are obstructing peace talks in Ukraine?
I want to quote some European diplomat who wasn't identified, but earlier this week, Lavrov was making these statements, and he said, literally, he said, we should stop paying attention to Lavrov. It's just noise. He never fails to state the opposite of the truth with greater precision. Always with greater and greater precision. There have been plenty of chances for Russia to assume negotiations. The Russians are always the ones that when the Ukrainians and the Russians get together in Turkey, they usually break things off very quickly. They're the ones that are refusing to discuss a ceasefire. They are the ones which continue to hit civilian targets, killing civilians. I just think it's ludicrous. I don't even listen to Lavrov anymore. I'm sorry. He doesn't care about what he's saying. The only thing he cares about is the transcript, which is sent back to Moscow of his remarks, so that people can make sure he's towing the party line.
And do you think this is in Lavrov's statements? Do you think this is a strategic narrative to shift blame, or does it reflect genuine diplomatic deadlock, or like you've said, that he just cares about what's sent back to Moscow?
He only cares about what's sent back to Moscow, but there's no deadlock. The only deadlock is that Vladimir Putin does not want this war to end. If this war ends, then his regime is over. That's all he's got left. He's destroyed his country. He's destroyed its economy. He's taking a demographic imbalance that the country already had, and he's made it 100 times worse. There's nothing of all of the vestiges of the Soviet Union that were left in Russia after the Soviet Union fell that could have been turned into something productive. All of that's been asset stripped and destroyed by Putin and his cronies. So this war is the only justification that he has for continuing the rule of the country by him and his other fellow former KGB acolytes and whatnot. This is all he has. If the war stops, Putin stops. So there's the deadlock. Until that changes, until the situation in Russia becomes so dire, the economy becomes so close to collapsing, until they run out of money, and until Putin is blocked from selling oil anywhere, including India, this war will go on.
And Ruben, building on your answer, you mentioned that you have great connections inside of Ukraine. How popular is President Zelensky still?
Well, his popularity is always talked about by certain pollsters as being very, very low. People have problems with him. They have criticisms of him, but they certainly support the government in a time of war. They certainly support continuing the war. They're not ready to have a revolt and remove him. If there is an election for president held once the war is over, he could be voted out. But no one today is suggesting that he has to resign or leave office.
Thank you, Ruben, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. The front lines remains active amidst the talks of peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. In the latest developments, Russian Defense Ministry has claimed that Russian defense forces have captured Filiia in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region. In the recent days, both sides have claimed their advances in the conflict zone. Earlier, there was a report of a Ukrainian drone attack on the nuclear power plant. Kursk acting governor has called these attacks a threat to the nuclear safety. These developments have come at the time when both Russia and Ukraine are targeting important infrastructures. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Ruben Johnson. Thank you, Ruben, for staying with us. Now, what are we to
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, what are we to make and trust when Ukraine claims other gains, while Russia claims other gains and other destructions, both of them claiming different things?
Having watched this war for 3.5 years, I have to tell you, you have to be very careful about any kinds of these claims. Yes, sometimes the Russians will take a piece of territory, they'll march into some village, they'll run up a flag. But how long do they hold it? Do they have active control? Do the Ukrainians counterattack? And I don't know the details because I haven't been able to verify them yet, but I'm deeply suspicious of these accusations about an attack on the power plant in the Kursk area, because there have been multiple attacks on the power plants in the large nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine that's been hit with it's a potential disaster. And the fact that the Russians are now claiming an attack by Ukraine on one of their power plants makes me deeply suspicious that there's something that's very, very disastrous in the offing that the Russians are trying to hide.
Yes, and now looking back at this calls and talks by President Zelensky today, what are the implications of President Zelensky's insistence on direct talks with President Putin?
It's time to call Putin's bluff, is what he's saying. And that has generally been the view, not just of Zelensky, but of most of the European allies. The European allies keep saying, okay, let's say if Putin's really interested, let's have these discussions. And if Putin refuses to have them, then that means his quote unquote peace initiatives were never real to begin with. But it's definitely time to do something. Trump and Putin met on the 15th in Alaska. And that was that meeting was supposed to secure a second set of interactions that would include Zelensky in the room. And that meeting was supposed to secure some kind of a step towards peace. But since that time, 34 Ukrainian civilians have been killed at last count. I haven't counted anything from last night. But it's been 34 civilians killed and 200 injured. So you have to ask yourself, why is Putin consistently blaming the other side? And why is he showing up for these interactions? And he talks about, oh, yes, we'll have a meeting, but the meeting never occurs and the killing goes on. And it's a pattern we've seen over and over and over.
And do you think this approach is right by both leaders? Do you think this approach can pressure Russia diplomatically or Kyiv diplomatically?
Well, I don't know why you would pressure Kyiv diplomatically, because Ukrainians today are complaining, not just today, but they've been complaining. They've been saying, look, we feel like we are being forced to sign a deal that would be the kind of deal we'd have to sign if we lost the war, and we haven't lost it. And Russia hasn't won it. But some of the European countries and the US seem to want us to give up territory, which would seal our fate. That's one aspect of all of this. And the only other thing I can say is that what I said before is pressuring Russia diplomatically isn't really going to do much of anything. You have to sanction the entire shadow fleet. You have to make sure that oil is no longer sold. And you have to take the restrictions off of the Ukrainians for using long-range weaponry to hit targets inside of Russia.
Connected.
Okay. We've lost the connection with Ruben, but thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruben, for joining us. That was Ruben Johnson. He's a director at Asia Research Center, and he joined us live from Warsaw. Thank you very much, Ruben, for staying with us. Now we move on to Middle East. Palestinians are mourning the loss of loved ones following the latest Israeli airstrikes on Gaza City, which claimed the life of 9-year-old Hamada Abed Rabo. The Gaza Health Ministry has confirmed that the young boy was killed when an Israeli airstrike hit a building in Gaza's Sabra neighborhood. As per reports, Israeli planes and tanks continue their assault, targeting the eastern and northern outskirts of the city. Explosions echoed throughout the night, particularly in Zaytun and Shejaya, as tanks shelled homes and roads in Sabra. Meanwhile, several buildings were destroyed in Jabalia and a northern town in Gaza. The Israeli military has confirmed that its forces are intensifying operations in the Jabalia area, aiming to dismantle militant tunnels and expand control in the region. The Israeli government has also announced plans to seize Gaza City, which it has described as Hamas's last stronghold. Let's hear what Palestinian civilians have said.
زحت أنا من عزبة عبد ربه وجيت في منطقة 30. البيوت راحت وكله راح وولد راح. إن شاء الله يا رب تكون آخر لحظة وتزول هالهم.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Professor Kobi Michael. He's a senior researcher at the INSS and Miskov Institute, joins us live from Israel. Thank you, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how are we to interpret this humanitarian impact of the ongoing Israeli military operations in Gaza?
It depends if eventually the citizens will leave Gaza, will leave the Gaza City towards the safe zones in the south, and if they will leave, then the casualties will be very minimal because all of those that will be left there will be Hamas militants. And this is, generally speaking, the idea of the IDF, and these are the preparations the IDF does in order to prepare in advance all the required conditions in the safe zones in the south, be it hospitals, clinics, and all the other stuff. And I assume that eventually most of the people will leave, and those who will not leave before the beginning of the military campaign will leave immediately after the beginning of the campaign.
And Professor Kobi, how is Israeli military differentiating between people leaving this Gaza to south from Hamas?
I would say that it is not an easy task, but there are some means that the IDF uses, like identification methods, biometric identification methods, and in the very same time, we have to assume that there will be some Hamas militants that will be able to leave the area to the south when they will be in the entire mess of people that will live there. But I mean, even if they will leave, I mean, it is okay. We can live with that because they will leave to the safe areas, and these safe areas will be pretty controlled by the IDF, and they will not be able to do what they are able doing in the Gaza Street, in the Gaza City, when they use their tunnels and their terrorist infrastructures.
And Professor, you mentioned ID cards, but knowing that most of these people are refugees from other parts, and also knowing that their houses have been destroyed, so how else can they identify or be differentiated if they don't have such ID cards and stuff?
No, I didn't say ID cards. ID cards can be used as not authentic ID cards. I was talking about biometric identification. I mean, by special cameras and some other means that the IDF uses in order to identify people.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Kobi, for always joining us and sharing your insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar holds talks with top Bangladeshi officials, including Foreign Affairs Advisor Tauhid Hossain in Dhaka. The visit is the highest level since 2012 and is called historic for Pakistan-Bangladesh relations. The two countries discuss boosting trade, economic cooperation, and connectivity. Several agreements are expected and direct Dhaka-Karachi flights are planned. Dar has emphasized Pakistan's commitment to a cooperative, forward-looking relationship. Ties have been improving since Sheikh Hasina fled to India last August, following a mass uprising that shifts Dhaka's foreign policy orientation. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Prashanta Kumar Shil, political commentator, joins us live from Dhaka. Thank you, Prashant, for joining us again. Good to see you. Can you tell us how is this news covered in Bangladesh? Is it welcomed or people are criticizing it? How is it?
You know that from Bangladesh and Pakistan relation, especially in Dhaka Islamabad relation, after 13 years back, you know that is once upon a time, historically there is one country is calling Pakistan and East and West Pakistan. So, but you can see that the present government of interim government of Bangladesh, they haven't built a very shining relations from Pakistan. You know that there is some pulse in Bangladesh, especially some political party who are talking about the Pakistan ideology, especially in Jamaat Islam and others. Thinking they have a very good bank in Bangladesh, and they have a very soft corner in Pakistan. But you know that we have some bargaining issue and revealing issues between Dhaka and also in Islamabad. The three issues, very major issues, and our foreign chief advisor mentioned that from the for the Pakistani foreign advisor Ishaq. So you know that the issues is the genocide of 1971, what the role from Pakistani military at that time, what the brutality and atrocities are there. And also you have in the second issues that is our actually the asset issues from due remaining issues in 1970 and 1971, what is happening. And also the another third issue is very sophisticated issue. You know that the some Pakistanis people are living in Bangladesh from due the several years back. So we haven't very strong enough condition to confirm back from this Pakistani from Bangladesh. So there's a very argumental issue. You know that I see that some from Pakistani newspaper and channels, and also the Dun. They are the very popular newspaper in Dun. They have mentioned this Dhaka-Islamabad relation, very superstar, very milestone relation. That's good. But you know that you have to clear to from Pakistan-Bangladesh relation when you can maintain what is your unveiling relation for the past. So if you clear that you are from apology for that from 1971, I think the relation can be or might be good enough for the future. But you cannot from recognize these issues, consider these issues is very wrong and is very not a perfect for the two countries build up relations. So this is my observation.
And Prashanta, building on your answer, you mentioned that there are still some things between them that are not cleared and must be cleared before they move ahead. But what are the key strategic interests for Bangladesh in strengthening trade and connectivity with Pakistan at this moment?
You know that the present time, the two governments have one agreement and 5 MAU. Very simply, you see that there is trade, commerce, cultural, and academic affiliation, nothing else. Very simple. Not a strategic a relation or other relation. You know that you can talk about the trade and commerce is far between in Bangladesh and Pakistan. You haven't talked about the mileage distance. So another point, you know that firstly I mentioned that in Bangladesh there is some rising pro-Pakistani activities are here. There is some political party, they are adopted Pakistani ideology. So there is some vote bank issues, correctly vote bank issues. And the government actually, they have a very soft corner for the Pakistan because there is some vote bank and the political parties are adopted here from Pakistan also for the vote bank. That is one kind of issue. And the second issue is actually in geostrategic issues. We talk about the present time. We haven't talked about the VRI and Indo-Pacific strategy. You know that the VRI that is direct influence in China, and also you can talk about the Indo-Pacific strategy that is from direct influence from US. So you know that the Pakistan relations the present time is a good or bad, is profitable or non-profitable. This is bargaining issues now because of this framing issue in the Pacific issues and also in the VRI issues. We have to connect it for that each other. But in the economic era in the global strategy, you can't be isolated. You have a very economic force. You can trade and commerce and everything. But you have it very softly. You know that in this South Asian belt, we have an organization that is South Asian Regional Corporation, and Bangladesh is very you know that establishment of the SARC from Dhaka, and we have a very strong and very affiliated and rebut this organization very well because you know that there is some abiding, some political, and major issues. So in this point, we are thinking in a very wide glance. There is a Pakistan-Bangladesh relation is very good and enough, but in the behind the reason you see that some strategic and some political interest for there. Actually is a hidden interest. We don't know what is happening, but you have to clear. First of all, you have don't clear for that the people, and it's not very benefited for the both countries. I think it's clear to all the government what is your objective and what is your destination, and
Yes.
have to say sorry in 1971 casualties. It's a very actually a historical touch for the Bangladeshi people.
Yes, thank you very much, Prashanta Kumar Shil, for joining us and sharing your insight as a political commentator from Dhaka. Thank you very much. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.